In the universe of the bold and the beautiful, suspicion is rarely born without cause. It does not appear suddenly, nor does it rely solely on evidence. Instead, it grows slowly, fed by patterns that feel too consistent to ignore and absences that speak louder than explanations. For Brooke Logan Forrester, the growing unease surrounding Eric Forrester and Katie Logan Spencer begins as a quiet discomfort. A nagging sense that the truth is being rearranged in front of her while she is expected to smile and accept it. Eric's frequent presence at the Logan house, always framed as help, mentorship, or creative consultation, raises questions Brooke cannot dismiss. She knows Eric well enough to recognize when generosity masks purpose, and she knows Katie well enough to sense when independence is no longer solitary. What unsettles Brooke most is not the possibility of business collaboration, but the secrecy that clings to it. In a family where alliances are rarely innocent, secrecy is never benign. Brooke begins to suspect that Eric and Katie are not merely working together, but deliberately keeping her, and others, outside the circle of truth. Rather than confronting them directly, Brooke chooses a strategy that reflects her long history within the Forrester world. She understands that power is not always exercised through confrontation. Sometimes it is exercised through patience, observation, and timing. Brooke decides to lay a trap, one that relies not on accusation but on apparent support. She presents herself as Katie's ally, offering encouragement for the Logan venture and expressing pride in Katie's independence. This performance is not insincere in tone, but it is calculated in intent. Brooke knows that people are most vulnerable when they believe they are trusted. Behind this carefully maintained facade, Brooke quietly sets the machinery of surveillance into motion. She arranges for Eric's movements to be tracked, not out of jealousy, but out of necessity. To Brooke, truth must be confirmed before it is revealed. She is not interested in rumors, she wants proof. This duality, public warmth and private vigilance, defines Brooke's role in what is about to unfold. She is no longer merely a participant in family drama. She is an architect of exposure. Meanwhile, Eric and Katie move forward with their work on the Logan project with growing confidence. Free from the constraints of Forrester Creations, they experience a creative liberation that feels almost intoxicating. Eric, long sidelined and diminished by those who once relied on his vision, feels restored. Katie, who has spent years fighting to be taken seriously on her own terms, finally feels seen as an equal rather than an accessory. Together, they believe they have built something pure, something untouched by the politics that poisoned their former environment. Their confidence extends beyond design. Eric and Katie convince themselves that their secret is secure, that discretion has protected them from scrutiny. They underestimate Brooke not because they doubt her intelligence, but because they misjudge her motivation. They assume she would not interfere in something that appears to empower Katie. What they fail to understand is that Brooke's loyalty has never been singular. It is divided between love, legacy, and the name Forrester, a name she believes must be defended even from those she loves. The trap is triggered with devastating precision. Brooke's investigation yields exactly what she anticipated. Clear evidence that Eric is not merely advising Logan, but serving as its chief designer. More damning still is the implication that Eric and Katie's partnership extends beyond professional boundaries, unfolding in secrecy behind the backs of Donna Logan Forrester and Bill Spencer. To Brooke, this is not just betrayal, it is hypocrisy disguised as reinvention. Brooke waits for the moment when exposure will carry maximum impact. That moment arrives at the Logan launch, an event carefully curated to celebrate independence, creativity, and rebirth. The room is filled with media, investors, and members of the Forrester board, an audience uniquely positioned to amplify scandal into consequence. Brooke's decision to reveal the truth publicly is not impulsive. It is deliberate. She understands that private confrontations can be dismissed or reframed, but public revelation becomes irreversible. When Brooke exposes Eric as the lead designer of Logan and implies the illicit nature of his relationship with Katie, the shock is immediate and total. Eric and Katie are blindsided, their confidence shattered in an instant. The room that moments earlier buzzed with admiration now hums with judgment. Cameras capture every flicker of disbelief, every tightening jaw, every forced composure. In that moment, Eric and Katie are not innovators, they are defendants. The fallout is swift and brutal. The Forrester board reacts with fury, interpreting Eric's actions as a direct attack on the company's integrity. To them, this is not a story of creative freedom but of intellectual betrayal. Eric's past status as founder offers no protection. If anything, it magnifies the offense. The media seizes the narrative, framing the partnership as a scandal rather than a collaboration. Logan, the brand meant to symbolize independence, is suddenly tainted by controversy. The personal consequences are even more severe. Donna's marriage to Eric is thrown into immediate crisis. Trust, once fractured, cannot be easily repaired, and the public nature of the betrayal deepens the wound. Donna is forced to confront not only Eric's choices, but the realization that she was the last to know. For Katie, the exposure threatens to undo everything she has worked to build. Her credibility as a businesswoman is questioned, and her motives are recast as opportunistic rather than visionary. Through it all, Brooke remains resolute. She frames her actions as necessary, as a defense of Forrester honor against internal corrosion. To Brooke, silence would have been complicity. She does not deny the pain she has caused, but she refuses to apologize for revealing the truth. Her confrontation with Eric is not fueled by cruelty but by disappointment. She believes that Eric, of all people, should have known better than to undermine the institution he created. Eric's response is neither submissive nor remorseful. He does not deny the partnership, nor does he retreat from its implications. Instead, he asserts his right to choose his path, to reclaim relevance on his own terms. Eric rejects the notion that loyalty requires obedience, especially when obedience demands erasure. To him, Brooke's exposure is not an act of justice but an assertion of control disguised as morality. Eric's declaration that he does not regret his choices marks a turning point. He is no longer defending himself, he is redefining the battlefield. He makes it clear that he will fight, not only for the Logan Project, but for his dignity, his autonomy, and his right to be respected as more than a relic of Forrester history. This defiance shocks those who expected contrition, and it signals that the conflict is far from over. The tragedy of this confrontation lies in its inevitability. Every character involved believes they are acting out of principle, yet each principle is rooted in a different understanding of loyalty and honor. Brooke believes truth must override comfort. Eric believes self-respect must override tradition. Katie believes independence must override permission. Donna believes trust should never be sacrificed to ambition. These beliefs collide not because they are incompatible, but because they are pursued without compromise. As the dust settles, the future of Logan hangs in the balance, and the Forrester family stands more divided than ever. Relationships once defined by love are now governed by suspicion. Alliances once forged through shared history are tested by divergent visions of the future. In the world of the bold and the beautiful, exposure is never the end of the story. It is the beginning of a deeper reckoning. And as Eric stands firm in his defiance and Brooke stands firm in her conviction, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. The most dangerous battles are not fought between enemies, but between those who believe they are right, and are willing to destroy everything to prove it. The aftermath does not unfold with a single explosion, but with a series of deliberate withdrawals that prove far more devastating than any public outburst. In the days following the Logan launch scandal, the silence surrounding Bill Spencer becomes impossible to ignore. For years, Bill's financial backing has functioned as both shield and leverage, a reminder that belief can be as powerful as capital. This time, however, belief evaporates. Bill's decision to halt all investment in Katie's company is not impulsive, nor is it framed as punishment. It is presented as inevitability. Trust, once compromised, no longer justifies risk, and Bill refuses to stake his empire on a venture now synonymous with betrayal and public humiliation. For Katie Logan Spencer, the withdrawal lands like a second ambush. The exposure at the launch stripped her of narrative control. Bill's exit strips her of stability. She understands immediately that this is not merely about money. It is about alignment. Bill has always operated by a brutal but consistent code. Loyalty must be absolute, transparency non-negotiable. In his eyes, Katie's decision to move forward with Eric in secrecy did not simply undermine Brooke or Donna. It undermined the unspoken contract that once existed between them. By choosing Eric's vision over shared truth, Katie chose uncertainty, and Bill will not finance uncertainty. The consequences ripple outward with merciless efficiency. Without Bill's backing, Logan faces scrutiny from every angle. Investors who once hovered at the edge of commitment retreat, citing reputational risk. Industry allies grow cautious, their praise tempered by concern. Katie finds herself forced into a position she never anticipated, defending not just her designs, but her character. The narrative that once celebrated her independence now frames her as reckless, emotionally compromised, and strategically naive. Each boardroom door that closes reinforces the reality that vision alone cannot survive without trust. While Katie fights to keep Logan alive, a far more intimate collapse unfolds elsewhere. Donna Logan Forrester reaches the end of her endurance with clarity that surprises even herself. The scandal did not merely reveal Eric's professional betrayal, it exposed a pattern of exclusion that Donna can no longer rationalize. For years, she defended Eric's pride, his need for relevance, his refusal to fade quietly. But the realization that his secret partnership with Katie flourished behind her back fractures something essential. Love, she discovers, cannot survive perpetual second place. Donna's decision to divorce Eric Forrester is not fueled by rage but by exhaustion. She recognizes that Eric's war for respect has eclipsed their marriage, transforming her from partner into collateral. The public nature of the scandal compounds the injury, forcing Donna to process private betrayal under public scrutiny. Every headline, every whispered speculation, becomes a reminder that she was not merely deceived, but rendered invisible. Eric, confronted with Donna's resolve, refuses to plead. His pride will not allow it, and his convictions will not bend. He frames the divorce as tragic but unavoidable, a casualty of a system that refuses to honor his autonomy. In his mind, Donna's departure confirms what he has long believed, that his pursuit of relevance must come at a cost, and that cost is worth paying. This rationalization hardens him, even as it isolates him further. Eric emerges from the dissolution of his marriage not broken, but fortified in defiance, convinced that compromise is simply another word for erasure. Yet the price of that defiance becomes increasingly apparent. Donna's absence reshapes the emotional landscape around Eric. Allies grow scarce. Sympathy thins. The same industry that once revered him now watches cautiously, unsure whether his rebellion represents brilliance or bitterness. Even those who admire his courage question his judgment. The founder who once embodied stability now appears unmoored, driven more by grievance than inspiration. For Brooke, the cascading fallout confirms her darkest expectations. She does not celebrate Bill's withdrawal or Donna's divorce, but she does not regret her actions. In her view, exposure did not create the damage, it revealed it. The fractures were already there, waiting for light. Brooke understands that truth accelerates collapse. But she also believes collapse is sometimes necessary to prevent deeper rot. Still, the weight of what she has unleashed lingers. Each consequence forces her to confront the uncomfortable reality that righteousness does not insulate one from guilt. As Logan teeters on the brink and Eric stands increasingly alone, the conflict evolves beyond individual choices into a reckoning about legacy itself. The Forrester name, once a symbol of unity forged through struggle, now represents division sharpened by ambition. The Logan name, once associated with resilience and reinvention, is now entangled in controversy and moral ambiguity. Neither side emerges unscathed, and the distance between intention and outcome widens with every passing day. In the end, Bill's withdrawal and Donna's divorce mark a definitive shift in the balance of power. Financial support and emotional loyalty, once taken for granted, are revealed as conditional forces that vanish when trust dissolves. Katie must now decide whether Logan can survive stripped of both capital and protection. Eric must decide whether his fight for relevance is worth the solitude it demands. And Brooke must live with the knowledge that defending a legacy sometimes means watching it burn. What follows is no longer a question of who was right, but of who will endure. In the world they have created, survival will belong not to the loudest voice or the boldest vision, but to the one willing to confront the cost of their choices, and still move forward when there is nothing left to lose.